I stared at my computer screen in complete disbelief, my hands trembling slightly as I scrolled through the email that had just arrived. Meeting rescheduled to 2 p.m. today. Your attendance is mandatory. But according to my work calendar, I was supposed to be in training all afternoon. This was the third time this month I'd received a last-minute notice about a critical meeting that conflicted with my schedule, and my stomach was churning with a terrible suspicion. This incredible story needs to be heard, so please like and subscribe if you want more. Where in the world are you watching? My name is Dorothy Kelly, I'm 64 years old, and after 37 years with Morrison & Associates, I thought I'd seen every possible workplace drama. But what was happening to me felt different. Calculated, deliberate, and deeply personal. I'd worked too hard and too long to let someone sabotage the final years of my career. The coffee in my favorite mug had gone cold as I sat at my kitchen table that Tuesday morning, laptop open, trying to make sense of the scheduling chaos that had been plaguing me for weeks. I'd missed the quarterly review meeting because I was supposedly scheduled for a client presentation across town. I'd been marked absent from the budget planning session because my calendar showed a mandatory safety training. Each time, my supervisor had given me disappointed looks and questioned my commitment to the team. "Mom, you're doing that thing where you stare into space and forget to breathe," my daughter Rebecca Kelly said as she walked into the kitchen, her nurse scrubs crisp and ready for her morning shift. At 38, Rebecca had inherited my stubborn streak and my protective instincts, which meant she could read my moods better than anyone. I looked up from my screen, realizing I'd been holding my breath. "Something's not right at work, honey. I keep missing important meetings, but I swear these schedule conflicts weren't there when I checked my calendar the night before." Rebecca poured herself a quick cup of coffee and sat down across from me, her dark eyes narrowing with concern. "What do you mean they weren't there? Schedules don't just change themselves?" "Exactly," I said, pulling up my work calendar and turning the laptop toward her. "Look at this. Yesterday at 5 p.m., I checked tomorrow's schedule, that's today, and I had the budget meeting at 10 and nothing else until 3. Now suddenly there's a training session from 9 to 12 that I apparently signed up for weeks ago." Rebecca leaned forward, studying the screen with the same analytical expression she used when reviewing patient charts. "Mom, this is really weird. Can you see when these calendar entries were created or modified?" I clicked through the settings, feeling increasingly frustrated with the technology. "I don't know how to check that stuff. The whole system got updated 6 months ago, and I'm still figuring it out." "Whoever is doing this knows you're not completely comfortable with the new system," Rebecca said, her voice taking on that protective edge that reminded me she was my daughter through and through. "They're counting on you not knowing how to trace these changes." The possibility that someone was deliberately manipulating my schedule sent a chill through me. I thought about my coworker, Marcus Webb, who'd been increasingly cold toward me since the department restructuring last year. He was 15 years younger, hungry for advancement, and had made several comments about making room for fresh perspectives in our team meetings. As the senior project coordinator, I had access to the best clients and the most interesting assignments, exactly what someone like Marcus would want. "You know what?" I said, reaching for my phone. "I'm calling Patricia. She's been with the company almost as long as I have, and she knows all the ins and outs of the computer systems." Patricia Rodriguez had been my closest friend at Morrison & Associates for over 2 decades. We'd started as cubicle neighbors and had supported each other through promotions, office politics, and countless workplace changes. If anyone could help me figure out what was happening, it would be Pat. She answered on the second ring, her familiar voice warm with concern when I explained the situation. "Dorothy, I've been wondering why you've seemed so scattered lately. Missing those meetings isn't like you at all." "Patricia, I need your help," I said, watching Rebecca nod encouragingly. Can you come over before work? I want to show you exactly what's happening with my calendar, and I need someone who understands the system better than I do. I'll be there in 20 minutes, she replied without hesitation. And Dorothy, save screenshots of everything. If someone is messing with your schedule, we're going to catch them. After I hung up, Rebecca squeezed my hand across the table. Mom, you've got this. You're the most organized person I know, and you've never been confused about your schedule before. Trust your instincts. I spent the next 15 minutes documenting everything I could remember about the mysterious scheduling conflicts, writing down dates, times, and which meetings I'd missed. Each incident followed the same pattern: last-minute conflicts that appeared overnight, forcing me to miss crucial meetings where important decisions were made about projects I'd been managing for months. When Patricia arrived, her usually immaculate silver hair was slightly windblown from hurrying, and she was carrying her laptop bag and a large coffee. Okay, detective mode activated, she announced, settling into the chair next to Rebecca. Show me everything. Patricia Rodriguez was the kind of friend everyone needed: smart, loyal, and absolutely fearless when it came to fighting injustice. At 61, she'd survived 3 rounds of company layoffs by becoming indispensable as the unofficial IT troubleshooter for everyone in our department. Her technical skills combined with her institutional knowledge made her the perfect ally for this investigation. Look at this, I said, pulling up my calendar history. Patricia immediately started clicking through screens I didn't even know existed, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. Dorothy, these entries have definitely been modified, she said after a few minutes, her voice tight with anger. And whoever did this was smart about it. They're not creating new appointments. They're editing existing ones and changing the times or descriptions. Rebecca leaned over Patricia's shoulder, studying the screen. So, someone with access to Mom's calendar is deliberately sabotaging her schedule? That's exactly what's happening, Patricia confirmed, her jaw set in a grim line. And I have a pretty good idea who has both the access and the motivation to do something this underhanded. My heart sank as I realized we were thinking of the same person. Marcus Webb had been assigned as my backup coordinator 6 months ago, which meant he had editing access to my calendar for coverage purposes. He'd also been increasingly vocal about wanting to take lead on the Hendricks account, my biggest and most prestigious client. We need more proof, I said, feeling a mix of anger and determination building in my chest. I'm not going to let someone destroy my reputation based on suspicion alone. Patricia nodded, already formulating a plan. Leave that to me. I know exactly how to set a trap that will catch whoever is doing this red-handed, and that's when the pattern snapped into place. That evening, I found myself staring at my laptop screen long after Patricia and Rebecca had left, my mind churning with everything we'd discovered. The evidence was damning, but I needed to understand the full scope of what Marcus had been doing. Patricia's plan to set a trap would take a few days to implement, which gave me time to dig deeper into my own records. I pulled up every project file from the past 6 months, cross-referencing them with the meetings I'd mysteriously missed. A pattern emerged that made my stomach turn. Every single sabotaged meeting had been related to client presentations, budget approvals, or strategic planning sessions where I was supposed to demonstrate leadership on key accounts. The meetings Marcus had left alone were routine check-ins, administrative updates, and other mundane tasks that wouldn't showcase my expertise. This wasn't random malice. This was calculated career sabotage. The realization hit me like a physical blow. For months, I'd been questioning my own competence, wondering if I was losing my edge, if the stress of managing multiple accounts was making me careless. I'd even started declining social invitations, convinced I needed to spend more time organizing my schedule and double-checking my commitments. The self-doubt had been eating away at my confidence in ways I was only now beginning to understand. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "Mom, are you okay? You seemed really shaken up when we left." I stared at her message, feeling a wave of gratitude for my daughter's perceptiveness. She'd inherited my analytical mind, but paired it with an emotional intelligence that sometimes surprised me. At 28, she was building her own career while still making time to worry about her mother's professional struggles. "I'm processing everything," I typed back. "Thank you for believing me when I thought I was going crazy." "You're not crazy. You're being targeted. There's a big difference." Her words settled something inside me that had been twisted in knots for months. I wasn't losing my mind. I wasn't becoming incompetent. Someone had been deliberately undermining me, and now I had allies who could help me fight back. The next morning, I arrived at the office with a strange mixture of anxiety and determination coursing through my veins. Patricia was already at her desk, and she gave me a subtle nod as I passed. We'd agreed to act completely normal while she worked on gathering digital evidence of the calendar tampering. Marcus arrived 20 minutes after me, as usual. I watched him from my peripheral vision as he settled into his cubicle across the office floor. He looked exactly the same as always: perfectly pressed shirt, carefully styled brown hair, that practiced smile he wore during client meetings. But now, I saw something calculating in the way his eyes tracked my movements when he thought I wasn't looking. How long had he been planning this? Had he volunteered to be my backup coordinator, specifically to gain access to my schedule? The questions multiplied in my mind, but I forced myself to focus on my work. Patricia had warned me that acting suspicious or confrontational could tip him off before we had solid proof. Around lunchtime, Marcus approached my desk with a friendly expression that now seemed sinister. "Hey Dorothy, I noticed you have that client presentation with the Morrison Group scheduled for Thursday afternoon. Just wanted to confirm I have the backup materials ready in case anything comes up." The casual way he mentioned it made my skin crawl. Was he already planning to sabotage that meeting too? I managed a smile and thanked him, all while documenting the interaction in the notebook I'd started keeping. Patricia had advised me to record everything, no matter how small. That afternoon, Patricia sent me an encrypted message through our internal system. "Setting the trap today. Created a fake meeting entry for tomorrow morning with your biggest client. Only you, me, and Marcus will know about it. Let's see what happens overnight." The waiting was excruciating. I went home and tried to focus on normal evening routines, but my mind kept racing through possible scenarios. What if Marcus was too smart to fall for the trap? What if we were wrong about everything? What if there was some innocent explanation for all the calendar changes? Rebecca called around 9 o'clock, her voice warm with concern. "How was your first day knowing the truth?" "Harder than I expected," I admitted, sinking into my favorite armchair. It's one thing to suspect someone is sabotaging you, but it's another thing entirely to look them in the eye and pretend everything is normal. You don't have to pretend much longer. Patricia's plan will work. Her confidence bolstered my resolve. I hope so. I'm tired of feeling like I'm losing control of my own career. You're not losing control, Mom. You're taking it back. The next morning, I checked my calendar before getting dressed, my heart pounding as I waited to see if the trap had worked. The fake meeting was gone, replaced with a conflicting appointment for a mandatory training session that didn't exist. But when I arrived at the office, Patricia was waiting for me with a grim expression that told me our problems were bigger than we'd imagined. Patricia pulled me into a small conference room and closed the door firmly behind us. Her expression was a mixture of anger and concern that made my stomach drop. "Dorothy, We caught him red-handed, she said, settling into a chair across from me. But when I dug deeper into the system logs, I found something disturbing. This has been going on for 8 months, not just the past few weeks like we thought. 8 months. The number hit me like a physical blow. That means he was sabotaging me almost from the day he started working here. It gets worse. Patricia opened her laptop and turned it toward me. Look at this pattern. Every single important client meeting, every presentation to senior management, every opportunity for visibility. He systematically moved them, canceled them, or created conflicts. He wasn't just changing random appointments, Dorothy. He was specifically targeting anything that could advance your career. I stared at the screen, watching her scroll through dozens of altered calendar entries. The scope of Marcus's deception was breathtaking. Why would he do this? What could he possibly gain? I've been thinking about that all night, Patricia said. Remember when the Henderson account opened up last month? Who got assigned to lead that project? The realization dawned on me slowly. Marcus did. Because I missed the strategy meeting where they were discussing team assignments. Exactly. And the Morrison Group account that you've been developing for months? Word is they're looking for a new primary contact because they feel like you've been unreliable lately. My hands began to tremble. Marcus hadn't just been making me look bad. He'd been positioning himself to take over my biggest accounts. He's been building his career by destroying mine? Patricia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. But now we have proof. The question is, what do you want to do about it? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Mom, I've been thinking about your situation all night. Can we talk after work today? I have some ideas that might help. I showed the message to Patricia, who nodded approvingly. Rebecca has a good head on her shoulders. Fresh perspective might be exactly what we need. The rest of the morning passed in a strange haze. I went through the motions of my regular work, while my mind reeled from the magnitude of Marcus's betrayal. Every time he walked past my desk, I had to resist the urge to confront him immediately. The friendly nods he gave me, the casual questions about my day. It all felt like elaborate theater now. Around noon, Marcus stopped by my desk with what appeared to be genuine concern. Dorothy, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you seem a little stressed lately. Is everything okay? I know you've had some scheduling conflicts recently. The audacity of his fake sympathy was almost impressive. Just busy with client work, I managed to say evenly. You know how it is. Of course. Well, if there's anything I can do to help coordinate your schedule better, just let me know. That's what I'm here for. After he walked away, I immediately called Rebecca. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and alert despite being in the middle of her workday. Mom, I'm so glad you called. I've been researching this kind of workplace sabotage, and there are specific steps you need to take to protect yourself legally. Legally? The word made everything feel more serious somehow. Think about it. Marcus has been deliberately interfering with your ability to do your job effectively. That's not just mean-spirited office politics. That could be considered workplace harassment or even tortious interference if it's affecting your earning potential. I found myself taking notes as Rebecca spoke. Her analytical mind had clearly been working on this problem since our conversation yesterday. What kind of steps are you thinking about? First, you need to document everything Patricia found with timestamps and screenshots. Second, you need to report this through proper channels before confronting Marcus directly. And third, you need to think about what outcome you actually want from this situation. That last question stopped me cold. In all my anger and hurt over the discovery, I hadn't really considered what I hoped to achieve beyond simply exposing Marcus's behavior. I don't know, I admitted. I just want it to stop. That's understandable, But you need to think bigger picture, Mom. Do you want him fired? Transferred? Do you want your accounts restored? Do you want protection against retaliation? These are all things you should decide before you make your move. Her practical approach helped ground me. Can we talk more about this tonight? Patricia and I are still gathering evidence. Absolutely. Why don't I come over around 7? We can order dinner and strategize properly. After ending the call, I felt more centered than I had all day. Rebecca was right. I needed to approach this situation strategically, not just emotionally. The afternoon crawled by with agonizing slowness. Every interaction with Marcus felt loaded with subtext. When he offered to help me prepare materials for next week's client presentation, I had to bite my tongue to keep from asking if he planned to schedule a conflicting appointment. When he mentioned he might be late tomorrow morning due to a doctor's appointment, I wondered if it was another lie designed to manipulate something in my schedule. Patricia stopped by my desk around 4 o'clock, ostensibly to discuss a project timeline, but really to check on my mental state. How are you holding up? Better now that Rebecca is coming over tonight. She's got some good ideas about how to handle this properly. Good, because I spent my lunch break digging even deeper into the system logs. And Dorothy? Patricia glanced around to make sure we weren't being overheard. I think Marcus has been accessing other people's calendars too. You might not be his only target. The implications of that revelation hit me just as Marcus returned from his afternoon meeting, briefcase in hand, and that familiar, friendly smile on his face. But this time, instead of feeling confused or self-doubting, I felt something else entirely. A cold, determined anger. If Marcus thought he could systematically destroy people's careers without consequences, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. That evening, Rebecca arrived at 7 sharp with Chinese takeout and a yellow legal pad covered in her neat handwriting. She'd always been the organized one, even as a child, and I felt grateful for that methodical nature now. All right, Mom, she said, spreading the containers across my kitchen table. Before we dive into strategy, tell me exactly what Patricia found today. You sounded pretty shaken on the phone. I handed her a plate and sat down across from her. She thinks Marcus has been tampering with other people's schedules too. I might not be his only victim. Rebecca's chopsticks paused halfway to her mouth. That changes things significantly. If there's a pattern of behavior affecting multiple employees, HR and management will have to take this seriously. They can't dismiss it as a misunderstanding or technical glitch. But it also means he's been doing this for who knows how long, I said, feeling that familiar knot in my stomach. How many people has he hurt? How many opportunities has he stolen? Don't spiral into guilt about what you couldn't have known or prevented, Rebecca said firmly. Focus on what you can control now. Has Patricia documented the evidence of tampering with other accounts? I nodded. She's being careful about it, making sure she's not overstepping any boundaries while gathering proof. She knows the computer systems better than anyone. Rebecca made notes on her pad. Good. Now, I've been thinking about your options, and I think you need to consider the political landscape at your company. Who do you trust in management? Who has the authority to actually do something about this? That question made me pause. In all my years at the company, I'd always focused on doing good work rather than navigating office politics. I suppose Janet, our department head, would be the logical person to approach. She's fair, and she's known both Marcus and me for years. What about HR? Less familiar territory for me, I admitted, but Marcus has been there longer than I have. He might have stronger relationships. Rebecca set down her chopsticks and looked at me directly. Mom, can I ask you something that might be difficult to hear? I braced myself. Of course. Are you absolutely certain Marcus did this intentionally? I know Patricia found evidence of tampering, but is there any possibility this could be explained by something else? A system error? Or maybe someone else with access? The question stung a little, but I recognized the lawyer in her asking it. She was preparing me for the skepticism I might face. I've been asking myself the same thing, but the pattern is too specific, too targeted. And today, watching him interact with me knowing what I know, Rebecca, I've worked with this man for 3 years. I can see the deception now. She nodded slowly. I believe you, but you need to be prepared for people to question that, especially if Marcus is well-liked or well-connected. We ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes, both lost in thought. Finally, Rebecca spoke again. What scares you most about confronting this situation? I considered the question carefully. Honestly, that it won't matter. That even with proof, people will find ways to excuse his behavior or minimize it. That I'll be labeled as difficult or paranoid, and my remaining years at the company will be even more miserable. Those are valid concerns, Rebecca acknowledged. But what happens if you do nothing? He continues stealing opportunities from me and probably others. My career stagnates, and I spend the next 5 to 10 years wondering what I might have accomplished if I'd been given fair chances. And how does that feel compared to the risk of speaking up? I realized she was doing something she'd learned in law school, helping me work through the logic rather than just telling me what to do. When you put it that way, staying silent feels like the greater loss. Rebecca smiled. There's my mom, the woman who raised me to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. My phone buzzed with a text message. Patricia had sent screenshots of additional calendar irregularities she'd discovered, along with a message. Found 3 more affected employees. Can we meet early tomorrow? I showed Rebecca the message, and her expression became more serious. This is bigger than we initially thought. Mom, you're not just fighting for your own career anymore. You might be the key to exposing a systematic problem that's affecting multiple people. The weight of that responsibility felt heavy, but also somehow clarifying. This wasn't just about my hurt feelings or missed opportunities. If Marcus had been manipulating schedules to sabotage multiple colleagues, then staying silent meant allowing that harm to continue. I need to call Patricia back and set up that meeting, I said, reaching for my phone. Wait, Rebecca said, putting her hand over mine. Before you do, let's talk about tomorrow's conversation with her. You need to go in with specific questions and a clear plan for what happens next. As we spent the next hour mapping out strategy, I found myself thinking about how much I'd relied on Rebecca's guidance throughout the evening. When had our relationship shifted like this? When had my daughter become someone I turned to for wisdom and counsel? Rebecca, I said as she packed up her legal pad. Thank you for taking this seriously and helping me think it through properly. I don't know what I would have done without your perspective tonight. She hugged me at the door. You would have figured it out, Mom. You always do. I'm just glad I can help you see what you already know. After she left, I looked at Patricia's message again. Tomorrow would bring another difficult conversation, more evidence of Marcus's betrayal, and probably more questions about how deep this deception ran. But tonight, for the first time since Patricia's revelation, I felt ready to face whatever we discovered next. The next morning, I arrived at the office 30 minutes early to meet with Patricia. The building felt different in the pre-dawn quiet, as if the usual energy that masked so many undercurrents had been stripped away. I found Patricia already at her desk, surrounded by printed emails and calendar screenshots. I've been here since 6, she said without looking up. I couldn't sleep after what I discovered last night." She spread the evidence across the conference table like a detective laying out clues. "Look at this pattern. It's not random, and it's not just you. Marcus has been systematically targeting anyone who might compete with him for visibility or advancement." As I examined the documents, my phone rang. Rebecca's name appeared on the screen. "Mom, I woke up thinking about our conversation last night. How are you feeling about today?" "Honestly, overwhelmed. Patricia found evidence that this goes much deeper than we thought." "Can you put me on speaker? I'd like to hear what she's discovered, if that's okay with Patricia." Patricia nodded, and I switched to speakerphone. As Patricia walked Rebecca through the evidence, I watched my daughter's legal training kick in, even through the phone. "Patricia, have you documented when each of these schedule changes occurred? And do you have any record of Marcus accessing these calendars?" "I have timestamps for most of it. As for access logs, that's where things get complicated. Marcus has administrative privileges that make his activity harder to track." "But not impossible," Rebecca said. "Mom, you need to understand that what Patricia is showing you could be grounds for a serious complaint. This isn't just office politics anymore." After we ended the call with Rebecca, Patricia and I sat in the quiet conference room as the morning light grew stronger outside. I could hear the first few early employees arriving, their voices echoing in the hallway. "There's something else," Patricia said, her voice dropping lower. "I think Marcus might suspect that I know something. Yesterday afternoon, he stopped by my desk and asked if I'd been helping you with any calendar issues." The way he said it made me uncomfortable. A chill ran down my spine. "What did you tell him?" "That I help everyone with technical problems when asked. But his expression—" Patricia shook her head. "I've never seen him look at me like that before." The door to the conference room opened, and Marcus himself walked in. The timing felt surreal, as if we'd somehow summoned him through our conversation. Patricia quickly shuffled the papers into a neat stack, but not before Marcus's eyes swept across the table. "Good morning, ladies. Working on a special project?" His tone was casual, but there was something sharp underneath it. "Just reviewing some scheduling conflicts," I managed to say, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "Ah, yes. Patricia mentioned you've been having some calendar troubles." Marcus moved closer to the table. "Anything I can help with? I'd hate for you to miss any more important meetings." The way he emphasized "any more" sent a clear message. He knew exactly what he'd been doing, and he was letting us know that he knew we knew. Patricia stood up, gathering the papers. "Actually, I think we've got everything sorted out now." "Excellent," Marcus said, but he didn't move toward the door. Instead, he looked directly at me. "It's so important to be reliable, don't you think? Especially when there are so many opportunities for advancement coming up." After he left, Patricia and I sat in stunned silence. The implied threat had been unmistakable. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "Call me when you can. I've been researching company policies, and I found something important." "Patricia, I need to call my daughter back. But first, I want you to know how grateful I am for your support. I also want you to know that if this gets uncomfortable for you, I'll understand if you need to step back." Patricia looked at me with an expression I'd never seen from her before. Determination mixed with something that looked almost like anger. "He threatened both of us just now," she said quietly. "I've worked here for 8 years, and I've watched good people get pushed aside while people like Marcus climb over them. I'm not stepping back." When I called Rebecca back, she answered on the first ring. "Mom, I found the company's anti-retaliation policy in their employee handbook. It's very comprehensive, and what Marcus just did could be considered intimidation of witnesses." "Witnesses to what, exactly?" to his systematic manipulation of your work environment. But Mom, there's something else. I think you need to consider that Marcus might escalate his behavior now that he knows you're onto him. That afternoon, I returned home emotionally drained. The confrontation with Marcus had shifted everything. What had started as a discovery about missed meetings had become something much more serious and potentially dangerous to both my career and Patricia's. Rebecca arrived at my house just as I was trying to process the day's events. She took one look at my face and immediately went to make tea. "Tell me everything that happened after we talked this morning," she said, settling into the chair across from me. As I recounted the conference room encounter, I watched Rebecca's expression grow more serious. "Mom, Marcus essentially admitted to his actions and then threatened you both. That's not the behavior of someone who's planning to stop." "I know. And I keep thinking about what you said last night, about this being bigger than just me now. Patricia's taking a real risk by helping me, and if Marcus retaliates against her, then that becomes part of the evidence against him," Rebecca said firmly. "Mom, I know this feels like it's spiraling, but actually, Marcus made a mistake today. He showed his hand." We spent the evening strategizing again, but this time the conversation felt different. Rebecca wasn't just offering legal advice anymore. She was angry on my behalf and on Patricia's behalf. I could see her protective instincts kicking in, the same ones I'd raised her with. "You know what strikes me about all this?" Rebecca said as she prepared to leave. 6 months ago, if someone at work had wronged me, you would have been the first person I called. Now I get to be that person for you." The observation hit me unexpectedly. She was right. Somewhere in the last few years, without either of us fully noticing, our relationship had evolved into something more reciprocal. Rebecca had grown from someone I protected and guided into someone who could protect and guide me when I needed it. "I'm proud of the woman you've become," I told her, "and grateful that you're willing to help me figure this out." "We'll figure it out together," she said, hugging me goodbye. "But Mom, promise me something. If Marcus does anything else that feels threatening, you'll call me immediately." That night, as I tried to fall asleep, I couldn't stop thinking about Marcus's expression in the conference room. There had been something calculating about it, as if he was already planning his next move. My phone chimed with a text message at 11:47 p.m. It was from Patricia. "Check your calendar for tomorrow. He's done it again." I stared at Patricia's text, my stomach dropping. After everything that had happened in the conference room, Marcus was still at it. The boldness of it was almost breathtaking. I opened my work calendar app, dreading what I'd find. Tomorrow's schedule showed a completely different arrangement than what I'd left at the office. The quarterly review meeting with department heads had been moved to conflict with my dentist appointment, an appointment that was actually fictional, but one that Marcus had somehow added to make me appear unavailable. More troubling was what else had been changed. My one-on-one with my direct supervisor had been shifted to a time when I was supposedly in training, and the training itself had been moved to overlap with a client presentation I was meant to attend. I called Patricia immediately, despite the late hour. "I'm sorry to text so late, but I knew you'd want to see this right away," she said without preamble. "Patricia, this is insane. How is he even doing this? And why is he escalating after what happened today?" "I think that's exactly why he's escalating," she said quietly. "He knows we're onto him now. This feels like he's trying to do as much damage as possible before we can stop him." The realization hit me like a cold wave. He's not planning to back down. He's planning to make things so bad for me that I'll have to quit or get fired before anyone believes what's really happening. That's what I'm thinking too. But here's what he doesn't know. I've been taking screenshots of every change he makes. I have a complete record now of the original schedules versus his alterations. I sank into my kitchen chair, feeling both grateful for Patricia's help and terrified of what Marcus might do next. What if he comes after you next? What if he tries to sabotage your work too? Then we'll have even more evidence, Patricia said with a determination that surprised me. Look, I've been thinking about this all evening. Marcus made a crucial mistake when he confronted us today. He revealed that he knows exactly what he's been doing. Before, he could have claimed it was all a misunderstanding or technical errors. But now? Now he's admitted to intentional action, and the fact that he's continuing after being confronted shows malicious intent. After we hung up, I found myself wide awake, staring at the ceiling and thinking about how much my life had changed in just a few days. A week ago, my biggest concern had been whether I was becoming forgetful or disorganized. Now I was dealing with workplace sabotage and veiled threats. The next morning, I called Rebecca before she left for work. "He did it again," I said without greeting. I could hear Rebecca's sharp intake of breath. "After yesterday? After he basically admitted what he was doing?" "Patricia thinks he's trying to do maximum damage before we can expose him. She's been documenting everything, taking screenshots of all the changes." "That's smart. Very smart." "Mom, I think it's time to take this to someone in authority at your company." The suggestion made my chest tighten with anxiety. What if they don't believe me? What if Marcus has covered his tracks somehow? What if this makes everything worse? What if doing nothing makes everything worse? Rebecca countered gently. "Mom, you taught me that sometimes the scariest thing to do is also the right thing to do. Remember when I was afraid to report that professor who was grading unfairly? You told me that staying silent never protects anyone except the person causing the problem." Her words echoed something I'd said years ago, thrown back at me with the wisdom I'd tried to instill in her. It was strange and wonderful and slightly uncomfortable to hear my own guidance reflected back through her adult perspective. "You're right," I admitted. "I know you're right. I just feel like I'm in completely unfamiliar territory here." "That's okay. Nobody expects you to have experience with workplace sabotage. But you do have experience with standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult." After we hung up, I texted Patricia to ask if she could meet me early at the office. I wanted to see Marcus's latest changes with my own eyes and make sure we had documentation of everything. Patricia was waiting by my desk when I arrived, her expression grim. "It's worse than I showed you last night," she said quietly, glancing around to make sure we were alone. "Look at this!" She pulled up the scheduling system on my computer and showed me something that made my blood run cold. Marcus hadn't just rearranged my meetings for today. He'd gone back and altered several past entries, making it appear as though I'd been missing meetings and deadlines for weeks. "If someone were to pull up your schedule history right now," Patricia explained, "it would look like you've been completely unreliable for almost a month." The scope of the manipulation was staggering. Marcus wasn't just trying to make me miss future meetings. He was rewriting history to destroy my professional reputation retroactively. "Patricia," I said slowly, "I think Marcus is building a case to have me fired." Patricia's eyes widened as she absorbed what I'd just said. "You think he's actually trying to get you fired?" "Look at this pattern," I said, scrolling through the altered entries she'd shown me. "He's not just causing me problems anymore. He's creating a paper trail that makes me look completely incompetent. If someone in management pulled this up, they'd see weeks of missed meetings, blown deadlines, and general unreliability." Patricia finished grimly. Even though none of it actually happened that way. The weight of Marcus's deception settled over me like a heavy blanket. This wasn't just workplace harassment or petty sabotage anymore. This was a systematic attempt to destroy my career. "We need to document everything right now," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Can you take screenshots of all these altered entries? And do you have any of the original versions saved anywhere?" Patricia nodded quickly. "I've been keeping copies of everything I've seen him change. I started doing it almost by instinct when I first noticed the pattern." She pulled up a folder on her desktop. "I've got screenshots going back 2 weeks, showing what your actual schedule was versus what he changed it to." "Patricia, you might have just saved my career." She was already busy taking new screenshots of Marcus's latest alterations. "I can't believe someone would go this far. What kind of person does this to a coworker?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "How did the early meeting go? Are you okay?" I quickly typed back. "Worse than we thought. Marcus has been altering past schedule entries to make me look unreliable. Patricia has been documenting everything." My phone rang almost immediately. "Mom, what do you mean he's been altering past entries?" Rebecca's voice was sharp with concern. "He went back into the system and changed historical data to make it look like I've been missing meetings and deadlines for weeks. If anyone in management looks at my record now, it would appear that I'm completely unreliable." There was silence on the other end for a moment. "That's not just harassment, Mom. That's like fraud or something." "He's falsifying records." "I know. Patricia has screenshots of the real versions, but I'm scared about what else he might have changed that we haven't found yet." "You have to report this today," Rebecca said firmly. "Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. This has gone way beyond anything you should try to handle on your own." I looked over at Patricia, who was methodically capturing evidence of each altered entry. Her dedication to helping me was both touching and reassuring, but Rebecca was right. This was bigger than what the two of us could manage alone. "I'm terrified," I admitted quietly. "What if he's thought of everything? What if he's covered his tracks somehow?" "Then at least you'll know you tried. But Mom, if Patricia has been documenting his changes, you have proof. Real proof. That's more than most people have in situations like this." After I hung up, Patricia turned to me with a stack of printed screenshots. "I've got everything we've found so far, but I think we should check your email next. If he can alter your schedule, he might have access to other things too." The thought made my stomach lurch, but I opened my email system. At first glance, everything looked normal. Then Patricia leaned over my shoulder. "Check your sent folder," she suggested quietly. I clicked through to my sent messages, and my heart nearly stopped. There, scattered among my legitimate emails, were several messages I'd never written. Emails to clients with incorrect information. Messages to my supervisor that sounded unprofessional and confused. A response to a meeting invitation that was borderline rude. "I never sent any of these," I whispered. Patricia was already pulling up her phone to photograph my screen. "He's been impersonating you through email too. This is really serious, Margaret." I stared at the fraudulent messages, each one designed to damage my professional relationships and reputation. The Marcus I thought I knew, the quiet, sometimes awkward coworker, had been systematically destroying my career from the inside. "I need to report this right now," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "Before he can do any more damage." As I reached for my phone to call my supervisor, I heard familiar footsteps approaching our section of the office. Marcus was arriving for work earlier than usual, and he was walking directly toward my desk with the expression I'd never seen on his face before. My hand froze halfway to the phone as I watched Marcus approach. There was something different about his walk, more purposeful, and his usual slightly hunched posture had straightened into something that looked almost predatory. Good morning, Margaret, he said, stopping directly beside my desk. His voice carried a tone I'd never heard before, confident, almost smug. You're in early today. Just catching up on some things, I managed, trying to keep my voice steady. Patricia had smoothly moved to block his view of my computer screen, but I could feel the printed evidence of his tampering sitting like a weight in the folder beside my keyboard. Marcus's eyes swept across my desk, lingering on the papers Patricia had been organizing. I hope you're not overworking yourself. I know how easy it is to get confused about schedules and responsibilities. The casual cruelty in his words hit me like a slap. He knew exactly what he'd been doing to me, and worse, he was enjoying it. All those months of thinking he was just awkward, maybe even feeling sorry for him, it had all been an act. Actually, I've been reviewing my calendar quite carefully, I said, surprised by the strength I heard in my own voice. It's amazing what you can discover when you really pay attention to the details. Something flickered across Marcus's face. Uncertainty, maybe even alarm. His confident facade cracked just slightly, and for a moment, I saw the calculating person who had been systematically destroying my reputation. Patricia cleared her throat. Marcus, don't you usually start in the West Wing? I thought Margaret mentioned your morning routine was pretty structured. The fact that Patricia was calling him out, even subtly, seemed to rattle him further. He looked between us, and I could practically see him trying to figure out how much we knew. Routines can change, he said, but his voice had lost its earlier smugness. I thought I'd check on Margaret. She seemed so stressed yesterday about missing that client presentation. Such a shame when scheduling errors cause professional embarrassment. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to meet his gaze directly. You know, it's funny you mention that. I've been wondering how those scheduling errors keep happening. It's almost like someone would have to have access to my calendar to make those kinds of mistakes occur so consistently. Marcus went very still. We stared at each other across my desk, and in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that he understood I was onto him. The mask had completely slipped now, and what I saw underneath made my skin crawl. Be very careful, Margaret, he said quietly, all pretense of friendliness gone. Sometimes when people start looking too closely at things, they find problems they weren't expecting. It would be terrible if your confusion about your responsibilities got worse. Patricia stepped closer to my desk. That sounds almost like a threat, Marcus. He turned his cold stare on her. It's friendly advice. Margaret's had such a difficult time lately. Memory problems, missed deadlines, unprofessional communications. It would be awful if things escalated to the point where management had to question her competency. The words hit me like ice water. He wasn't just threatening to continue his sabotage. He was telling me he was prepared to make it worse. Much worse. But something had changed in me during this conversation. Maybe it was Patricia's support. Maybe it was finally seeing Marcus for who he really was. But the fear that had paralyzed me for months was transforming into something else entirely. You know what, Marcus? I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. I think it's time I had a conversation with someone about all these problems I've been having. Someone in management who might be very interested in understanding exactly how they keep happening. His face went pale, then flushed red. For several long seconds, we stared at each other in complete silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The tension in the air was suffocating. Patricia hadn't moved from beside my desk, and I could feel her steady presence like an anchor. Marcus stood frozen, his threat hanging between us like a blade. Wouldn't do what? I asked, my voice surprisingly calm despite my racing heart. Wouldn't tell the truth about what's been happening to me? Wouldn't protect myself from someone who's been systematically trying to destroy my career? Marcus's jaw clenched. You don't understand the position you're putting yourself in, Margaret. When management reviews your recent performance issues, when they see the pattern of problems you've been having, they're not going to be looking for elaborate conspiracy theories. They're going to see someone who can't handle her responsibilities. And you'd make sure of that, wouldn't you? Patricia interjected, her voice sharp with disgust. You'd make sure those performance issues got worse, more visible, more damaging. His cold gaze flicked to her, then back to me. I don't make anything happen, Patricia. I simply observe what's already occurring. Margaret's struggles speak for themselves. The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, that for a moment I felt that familiar doubt creeping in. But then I remembered the timestamps on my calendar changes, the precision of his sabotage, the calculated cruelty of it all. Stop, I said firmly. Just stop. I know what you've been doing, Marcus. Maybe I can't prove every detail yet, but I know. And now, Patricia knows. How long do you think it'll be before other people start noticing the pattern? Something flickered across his face. Fear, maybe, or calculation. Other people see what they see, Margaret. They see someone who's been making mistakes, missing deadlines, causing problems. If you start making wild accusations, it's only going to make you look more unstable. Wild accusations? My voice rose slightly, and I had to force myself to lower it. Is that what we're calling documentation now? Evidence? Because I've started keeping very detailed records of these mysterious scheduling conflicts. That hit home. His composure cracked just enough for me to see genuine alarm in his eyes. Records can be misinterpreted, he said carefully, especially by someone who's already demonstrated poor judgment and organizational skills. Patricia stepped forward, her professional demeanor shifting into something more protective. You know what I find interesting, Marcus? In all my years here, I've never seen scheduling errors quite like the ones Margaret's been experiencing. So targeted, so perfectly timed to cause maximum damage. It's almost like someone would need intimate knowledge of her calendar and her client relationships to make them happen so effectively. Marcus turned his full attention to Patricia, and I watched his expression harden. I'd be very careful about making implications you can't support, Patricia. Your reputation for professionalism has always been impeccable. It would be unfortunate if that changed. Are you threatening Patricia now too? The words came out before I could stop them, loud enough that I immediately glanced toward the hallway, worried about who might have heard. I don't threaten anyone, Marcus said smoothly, but his eyes were ice cold. I simply point out realities. Margaret, you've been struggling. That's obvious to anyone paying attention. If you choose to compound those struggles by making accusations against colleagues who've tried to help you, well, that's your decision. But decisions have consequences. The way he said, help, made my stomach turn. All those times he'd offered assistance, shown up with suggestions, positioned himself as the concerned colleague. It had all been theater while he quietly destroyed my career behind the scenes. Help? I repeated, unable to keep the incredulity out of my voice. Is that what you call changing my calendar entries? Moving my meetings without telling me? Making me look incompetent and unreliable? That's your version of help? For just a moment, his mask slipped completely. The expression that crossed his face was triumphant, almost gleeful, before he caught himself and rearranged his features back into that concerned colleague facade. But Patricia had seen it too. Oh my God, she breathed, You actually enjoyed it. You enjoyed watching her struggle, didn't you? Marcus straightened his tie, his movements precise and controlled. I think this conversation has become inappropriate and unproductive. Margaret, I hope you'll reconsider making any hasty decisions about who to talk to or what to say. Sometimes the truth isn't as clear as we think it is. He turned to leave, then paused at my cubicle entrance. Oh, and Margaret, you might want to double-check your schedule for this afternoon. I believe there might have been another one of those unfortunate scheduling conflicts. It would be terrible if you missed anything else important. With that, he walked away, leaving Patricia and me staring after him in stunned silence. Did he just... Patricia started. Admit to sabotaging my schedule while threatening to make it worse if I report him? I finished. Yeah, I think he did. My hands were shaking as I opened my calendar, and what I saw there made my blood run cold. My heart sank as I stared at my computer screen. The quarterly review meeting with the senior partners, the one I'd specifically confirmed yesterday, had been moved to this afternoon at 2 p.m. But according to my calendar, I was now supposedly scheduled for a routine administrative review with HR at the exact same time. Patricia, look at this, I whispered, turning my monitor toward her. He wasn't just threatening me, he already did it. Patricia leaned in, scanning the conflicting appointments. That bastard. He moved your biggest meeting of the quarter and buried it under some fake HR appointment. I felt tears of frustration building. If I miss this meeting, Patricia, I'm done. The partners are reviewing all the project managers for potential promotions, and after everything that's happened with my missed meetings, I trailed off, the weight of it all hitting me. No, Patricia said firmly. Absolutely not. We're not letting him win. She pulled out her phone and started taking screenshots of my calendar. We need proof of exactly when these changes were made. Can you check your email history? I scrolled through my recent messages, my hands still trembling with anger and fear. Here, look. Yesterday at 4:47 p.m., I received a meeting update about the HR appointment, but I never got any notification about the partner meeting being moved. Because he deleted that notification, Patricia said grimly. Margaret, this is bigger than just schedule changes. This is systematic career sabotage. The reality of my situation felt overwhelming. All those months of self-doubt, wondering if I was losing my mind or becoming incompetent. And it had been Marcus all along. The missed client calls, the scheduling conflicts that made me look unprofessional, the way I'd started second-guessing every decision I made. I need to tell my sister about this, I said suddenly. Patricia looked confused, so I explained. Emma works in corporate law. She's been telling me for months that something wasn't right about all these scheduling problems. She said it felt too convenient, too targeted. Smart sister, Patricia said. What did you tell her? That I was probably just stressed and making mistakes. I laughed bitterly. I actually defended Marcus to her once, told her he was just being helpful when he kept offering to assist with my calendar management. Patricia shook her head in disbelief. He offered to manage your calendar? And you didn't see how that could be a problem? He made it seem so reasonable. Said he'd noticed I was struggling with scheduling conflicts and offered to help coordinate with other departments. I was so grateful for what I thought was genuine support. The memory made me feel sick now. Margaret, we need to document everything before he can cover his tracks, Patricia said urgently. Print out your calendar history, save those email timestamps, and get to that partner meeting. The HR appointment can be rescheduled, they won't care. But missing the quarterly review will be exactly what Marcus wants. I nodded, feeling a spark of determination replacing the despair. You're right. I'm not letting him destroy my career anymore. As I gathered the evidence Patricia had helped me identify, I thought about calling Emma right away. She'd want to know that her instincts had been correct all along, and more importantly, she'd know exactly how to help me handle this situation properly. For the first time in months, I felt like I could see clearly. Marcus had been playing a long game, slowly undermining my confidence and professional reputation. But now that I knew what was really happening, I could fight back. The quarterly review meeting was in 3 hours. Enough time to prepare my case and show the partners that I wasn't the confused, unreliable project manager Marcus had been trying to make me appear to be. I was done being his victim.